clean, okay, so that you're not introducing weeds with those liners. And consider producing your own liners. I've seen a lot of nurseries are moving back to producing their own liners, their own rooted cuttings, because it gives you better control of your own inventory and supply chain. But it also gives you an opportunity, if you're a good propagator, to have cleaner liners as well. Like I said, manage the sources of weeds on your nursery. So all the weeds are not coming with the liners. I've always wondered how crabgrass became one of our top 10 weeds of container nurseries. It has no other means of getting there, but looking at this pot storage pile, I figured out how that nursery had crabgrass in so many pots. Okay, piles of potting mix needs to be stored in an area without wind-blown seed coming in. Okay, so keep the area where you've got your potting mix stored clean, and get your pots up off of the ground. You can see anytime you've got soil or gravel or whatever washing into these pots, it's an opportunity for weeds to get in it, and particularly with some of these small pots that are going to be used in propagation. You know, you're really never going to get those clean again. So ideally, in propagation, you should start with clean pots. But if you're going to reuse them, make sure they get rinsed out and are stored in a way they're not going to get contaminated. Around the nursery, make sure you hand weed before plants go to seed, because in container nurseries, we get multiple generations of weeds that can self-disperse. Most of our really tough to control nursery weeds have structures that allow them to disperse themselves. You all know about oxalis, you all know about bittercress, but did you know some of these others, like spurge, will shoot its seed 2 to 3 feet. So the spurge that's growing in the gravel around the nursery, around the edges of your bed, throwing seed into the bed, and then they just leap from pot to pot to pot as the populations expand. And of course, wind dispersed seeds, you want to make sure you control them. For example, wind dispersed seeds, you want to make sure that also all of these weeds, you know, this is common groundsel. A wind dispersed seed has a pappus a lot like a little dandelion. Weeds float in the wind. But this particular weed had been pulled and thrown to the side several days prior. Same with this. And you can see it got pulled up, thrown to the side, and its last gasping effort is standing the seed heads up, the flower heads, to distribute those seeds before it dies. And they can stay there for several days. How many times have you visited your competitor to find piles of weeds in pots or on the ground at the end of a bed, where the weeding crew went through? Yeah, your competitors were doing that, weren't they? Yes, absolutely. Okay, one of the other favorite ones of mine is you've got your nursery wagons. You know what I'm talking about, the metal wagons, nice and open. And the weeds get dumped on that wagon, and then they bounce through the roads of the nursery, shaking the groundsel seed off all the way. Okay, so you don't just pull them. Pull them and get them out of there. Pull them and get them out of there so they are not having the opportunity to reinfest. Around the perimeter of the nursery, look for weeds like horseweed, like common groundsel. This is baccharis. How do you get baccharis or groundsel shrub in your nursery? You grow it around the ditch banks around the nursery, and it blows right in. So sanitation, and this doesn't mean you have to go out and spray everything, but mow the plant down. Just mow it to keep it from going to seed. Okay, and that'll reduce the amount that go in. So around the nursery, mowing is effective for large plants like baccharis. For smaller ones, you may need to use some herbicides. If you're going to use herbicides for sanitation around the nursery, use herbicides that are labeled for use in nurseries. Don't use any industrial type herbicides. Here's an example of that mistake. You know, the roadway was treated with a herbicide that contained arsenal. And the arsenal washed into the production area, and here is what used to be an abelia. There's the damage to a ligustrum. So just don't succumb to the temptation to use these bare ground type treatments. Use something that's labeled for the nursery. What I'm recommending is a SureGuard with or without barricade. I like SureGuard plus barricade. It's holding up very well in gravel treatments. I know the barricade tends to hold up better than some of the other dimethylamines. Dr. Ted Woodwell did some of that work years ago here at Clemson University, and I've been quoting him ever since, so I still hope that's correct. And SureGuard, we've had excellent results with SureGuard in these gravel areas. In and around your perennial production, herbaceous production areas, I prefer to suggest gallery and barricade. Even though it's not quite as effective, a little bit of splashing of SureGuard onto some herbaceous perennials could cause some damage, whereas this gallery barricade is just going to be much less risky and less injurious in the perennials. We've got some trials out right now in this type of a situation with the new herbicide from BASF called Tower, and I think it might have a fit in this use as well. It seems to be holding quite well.